Marvel, from Mecha creator to Ultraman legend. Like, share and subscribe. Episode 21. Countless people have speculated about where these monsters came from and whether Earth is facing an alien invasion. Of course, more speculation is made by the military of the ugly country. After all, the appearance of the Hulk and Abomination is traceable. Any force with a little ability can find information about the Hulk and Abomination. Just like at S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters at this time. Fact. Nick Fury directly exploded after getting information about the Hulk and Abomination. After all, these two monsters fought on the streets of New York, and the impact on the entire ugly country was really great. Although there is no information about other monsters yet, of course, he also counted these monsters on the head of the military. After all, there are lessons from the past. Your military can all come up with monsters like the Hulk and Abomination, so it's understandable to have more. The World Security Council, on the other hand, entrusted the fight against the monster to the Bureau of Homeland Strategic Defense Attack and Logistics. This is one of the reasons why Nick Fury is very angry. The only thing he was happy about was that his Superman team plan had been approved specifically to deal with these special events. However, what gives him a headache is that Tony Stark is the only one in the current Superman team who has the ability to deal with these things. Black Widow and Hawkeye, although they are outstanding among agents, neither has the ability to deal with monsters. So the next thing Nick Fury has to do is expand his Superman team. It just so happened that he had received news about a super soldier 70 years ago, but now that Coulson had been sent to New Mexico, it had to be postponed a bit. Meanwhile, after Lot chatted with Susan for a while, the two went home from work to prepare a candlelit dinner. At night, he gave Susan the ship Saiwen Armor, and the two of them roamed the sky together. No one could refuse the feeling of flying alone in the sky, not even Susan. Susan, who was excited, also worked harder and harder in the battle between the two at night. That wild side really made Roth feel extraordinary. A few days later, at Imperial State University in Queens, New York. As the morning sun rises, the campus becomes lively. "Hey, Peter Parker, come with me. Fleischer is about to start class." Peter Parker looked at the Fleischer three with some fear, obviously not wanting to go with them. "Just let you come with me." Fleischer glared, and immediately wrapped her arms around his neck and dragged him towards the grove. Other students passing by also saw this scene, but no one wanted to care about it. After all, Fleischer is a school bully, and no one dares to provoke easily. It was very quiet in the early morning grove, because the trees were so dense that even the sun couldn't let in. "Peter Parker warned me a long time ago, stay away from Gwen, otherwise I want you to look good." Fleischer fiercely grabbed Peter Parker's collar and pressed him tightly against a tree. "Sorry, The flustered Peter didn't know how to explain it at all. He just had a word with Gwen yesterday, but he didn't expect to be troubled today. "Look at me, Peter Parker, you should know the end of disobedience against me," Fleischer said and punched Peter Parker in the stomach, and Peter Parker covered his stomach in pain. Then Fleischer punched him in the face again, knocking him to the ground. Hit hard in succession, Peter could only cover his stomach and fall to the ground and moan in pain. However, Fleischer was still uneasy, followed by another kick. "Okay, Fleischer, class is coming soon," the hedgehog-headed student on the side persuaded, and if he continued to fight, he was worried that Peter Parker would be killed. He didn't want to go to jail. "Remember my words, Peter." Fleischer put down his cruel words and planned to leave. And yet, it was at this very moment. Suddenly, a black shadow stretched out from the grove, and immediately took the hedgehog-headed classmate beside him away. Only a mournful scream remained. It wasn't until the screams died down that Fleischer and the other yellow hair reacted. "What's that?" Fleischer couldn't help but swallow. "I don't know, let's call the police." Huang Mao was also a little afraid. Not only the two of them, but also Peter Parker, who was lying on the ground with a beaten body scale, also heard the gruesome scream. He didn't dare to get up at all now, nor did he dare to make any moves. "Let's go, call the police first," Fleischer said and slowly took a few steps back, and then the girl ran, followed by Huang Mao. Meanwhile, many students outside the grove also heard the scream, and some people had already chosen to call the police. "Fleischer, what happened inside?" Gwen Stacy, who happened to be passing by the grove, looked at the two who ran out with some doubt. "There are monsters, George was captured by monsters," Fleischer gasped. "What?" Hearing his words, not only Gwen, but also the surrounding classmates were a little alarmed. After all, there have been quite a few monster attacks in New York recently, and the crowd suddenly rioted. "Hurry up and run, this is no longer something we can solve," Fleischer said and ran away directly with the yellow hair on the side. Gwen frowned when she saw this, and after thinking about it, she ran directly towards the grove. No one noticed her move. When she came to the grove, all she heard was the sound of clicking and chewing. Episode 22. Quick, run. At this time a voice startled Gwen, but he was relieved to see Peter Parker with a blue nose and a swollen face. "Are you Peter Parker? What's really going on inside? Run, there are man-eating monsters inside, it's too late if you don't run," Peter Parker said and walked towards the grove, ignoring her in the slightest. Gwen frowned, the clatter of chewing in her ears was really creepy, but she did not run away, but carefully continued deep into the grove. Finally, deep in the grove, I saw a humanoid monster lying on a corpse and biting, with a bud behind its back. And from the bud stretched out several tentacles swinging with their teeth and claws. Gwen's eyes widened, and she quickly covered her mouth. The monster in front of her was really unbelievable. That bloody scene made her feel the urge to vomit. At this moment, the monster suddenly stopped biting the corpse and suddenly looked back at Gwen. Then several tentacles quickly reached out towards her. At the same time that these tentacles were about to bind her, she suddenly jumped and quickly dodged the tentacles' attack. "You can't run away." A few words suddenly spat out from the monster's bloody mouth. Gwen was particularly shocked, she didn't expect this monster to actually speak. Then several tentacles whipped at her again. However, she still flexibly avoided it, and Gwen at this time was very glad that her body had mutated a few days ago. Not only is the reflex amazing one, but the power and speed have also changed dramatically. This is also the reason why she dared to come to the grove alone to find out. As the tentacles kept whipping, Gwen quickly jumped and dodged back and forth between the trees before escaping the grove. After turning her head and seeing that the monster did not catch up, she was relieved. Of course, she wasn't trying to run away. Moments later, she has donned a black and white spider suit, which has her homemade spider silk launcher so that she has the ability to fight monsters. Then she returned to the grove again. "Hey, you monster!" Gwen hung upside down on the tree, looking at the monster below, who was still eating the corpse, and provoked. "You still dare to come back?" The monster didn't seem to expect that this little bug that slipped away actually dared to come back, and then several tentacles quickly wrapped around. Seeing this, Gwen ejected spider silk from his hand and connected to another tree, easily dodging the tentacles with one swing. With the help of the spider suit, her strength can be perfectly brought out. However, the monster she faces is nothing else, it is the Nepa Starman, and its difficulty is even more above King Black. How could Gwen, who had just become a ghost spider, be its opponent? I saw that after Gwen used spider silk to wrap around several tentacles of the other party, before she could be proud, a tentacle that had been in ambush for a long time quickly wrapped her legs, and then smashed her heavily on the ground. "Ah!" Gwen screamed in pain, which made her internal organs seem to be shattered. However, the Nepa Starman did not let her go, only to see that the tentacle lifted her high again, and then fell down heavily. Gwen snorted, blood already flowing from the corner of his mouth. Weak, she no longer had the power to resist, which couldn't help but make her feel desperate. Just as the tentacles of the Nep Star lifted her high again, suddenly there was a sound of breaking air above the grove. Immediately afterwards, a figure with a firelight rushed down from the dense tree. The sword flashed, and the tentacles of the Nepa Starman wrapped around Gwen's ankle were instantly cut off. Then Gwen found herself caught by a guy who was fully mechanical. "Saved." The moment she thought so, Gwen couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, and she fainted instantly when she relaxed. Roth looked at the girl in the white spider suit in his arms with some surprise. Could it be Gwen the ghost spider? This outfit instantly reminded him of a female spider in a parallel universe. In that parallel universe, it was not Peter Parker who was bitten by the spider, but Gwen Stacy. This also created the ghost Spider-Man Gwen. If he guessed correctly, it was this girl with a bumpy figure in his arms. Without thinking too much, Roth dodged several tentacle attacks and put Gwen in a safe place. After no worries, he returned to the Nepos again. "It is said that this guy of yours has a high IQ, and it seems that he is not high enough, and he actually exposed his whereabouts so quickly." Just after receiving the news that the monster had been found in the school, Roth rushed over non-stop. He really didn't expect that the Nepos star would be exposed so quickly. "I thought how high the IQ of the Nepos people was, but it turned out to be just that." "What are you?" The Nepos Starman did not attack rashly, but the speed of the other party just now made it a little jealous. "The one who killed you." Roth didn't bother to talk more nonsense with an alien, only to see him shoot 2 small missiles from both shoulders. However, the small missile was still halfway through the tentacles of the Nepalese. Although it did not have an effect, the rising smoke also had the effect of blocking the view. Lot's figure flashed and changed positions, and the plasma cannon in his hand began to charge, and then a blue energy cannon blasted out without hesitation. Thundered. A violent explosion occurred in the grove, toppling all the surrounding flowers and trees, and even the sunlight finally penetrated. Episode 23. When the smoke cleared, Lot's gaze froze slightly. I saw that the Nepos star actually wrapped himself with a large number of tentacles. This plasma cannon actually had no effect. It seems that it has to be solved quickly. Roth glanced at Gwen, who was not far away, and judging from her faint breath, she was already seriously injured, and if she was not treated, she was afraid that her life would be in danger. Thinking of this, he decisively pulled out the spikum sword behind him and set up a posture. The Nepos Starman laughed strangely, and then dozens of tentacles all poured in, covering the sky like a large net, and there was no room for dodging at all. Lot's gaze condensed slightly, and the spersium sword in his hand quickly cut out. Poof. Several tentacles were cut off in an instant, but the tentacles in front of him did not decrease, but increased. At the same time, I saw that there was an extra tentacle wrapped around his waist. Lot was shocked in his heart, seeing more tentacles coming, his wrist shook, and Spichum's sword instantly slashed back. After cutting off the tentacles on his waist, he quickly broke away from the encirclement of a large number of tentacles. Roth held his breath and stared at him like a torch. The moment just now really made him break out in a cold sweat. If he was entangled in a large number of tentacles, it would be finished. He didn't have the confidence to break free from these tentacles. It seems that you can only use that trick. Lot's gaze froze slightly, and he saw a large number of tentacles wrapped around again. This time he did not dodge. Hands clasped the sword of Spichum in his hand. He drank loudly and then slashed down. At the moment of swinging the sword, Spichum's sword released a white slashing wave. Thundered. In an instant, all the tentacles in the path of the chopping wave were easily cut off, and even the earth was cut out of deep ravines. The next moment, the chopping wave directly penetrated the body of the Nepos Starman. How is it possible? The Nepos Star was stunned in place, and the next moment its entire body was divided into two halves. Ding, congratulations to the host for killing the Nepos Starman and getting 4,000 points. Phew, it's over. After hearing the system prompt, Roth finally sighed. This battle is really a little difficult. If it weren't for his last killer skill, it would be really difficult to kill the Nepos. And at present, Saiwen Armor version 4.0 can only release a chopping wave formed by Spikum's ray. Once this chopping wave is released, the Spikum sword will be damaged and cannot be used. So he won't use this trick as a last resort. Fortunately, he successfully killed the Nepos. Let's get out of here first. Hearing the siren outside the school, Roth was about to leave, but saw Gwen lying dying not far away. Forget it, let's take her to the hospital first. Saying that, Lot picked up Gwen and flew into the distance. It was just a minute after he left. Two breaking sounds quickly fell from the air. Damn, it's already preempted by that guy. Tony scanned the destruction around him, but did not see the monsters appear, knowing that they were late. Oh my god, what kind of weapon is this? Rhodes stared at the deep ravine, which was not the result of thermal weapons. Tony noticed this, too, but he couldn't figure out what kind of weapon caused it. Could it be the sword in that guy's hand? Impossible, that sword is so short, how can it be possible to cut this ravine? Tony couldn't figure it out. The other side. Roth has taken Gwen to a private hospital owned by Olympic Sports Technology. After a series of examinations, it was found that Gwen had indeed suffered very serious internal injuries. Amazingly, however, her body is healing itself at a very fast pace. At this rate of self-healing, I am afraid that it will not take a week to recover as before. Seeing this, Roth couldn't help but sigh. The spider gene is really a little perverted. Such a serious injury can actually recover. However, if you want to talk about it, the ghost spider is not weak, but this spider suit is a little rudimentary. After carefully looking at the white spider suit that tightly wrapped Gwen's bumpy figure and letting the female nurse take good care of it, he turned and left the ward. He then asked the doctors in charge of examining Gwen to keep all the physical examination secret, and deleted all the examination data, before returning to his underground research base. This time, 4,000 points were awarded for successfully completing the mission to kill the Nepos, and together with the previous 3,000 points, the total number of points reached 7,000. This number made him a little painful. After all, it took 8,000 points to exchange for primary quantum teleportation technology. Now he is only 1,000 points away. Forget it, summoning a monster. Roth also does not talk nonsense and quickly finds the right monster in the system mission. Ibira, carnivorous giant mutant lobster monster, 5 meters tall, weighing 20 tons, although the appearance is like a lobster, but it is a two-sacrifice animal, can move freely on land, and can earn 3,000 points for killing. The decision is yours, but forget it today, it's calling in a few days. At present, the Spichum sword of Saiwen's armor has been damaged and must be repaired before it can be used. A monster like this that is huge and does not transform into a human is likely not hiding. So summoning in advance is not necessary. It's never too late to wait until the Saiwen armor is repaired. Episode 24, following. In the ward about private hospital. Gwen opened her eyes in a daze, and suddenly, she sat up directly from the bed and looked around warily. However, after seeing the wards around, he was relieved. She knew someone had taken her to the hospital. Thinking back to everything that had happened before, she felt like she was dreaming. In the face of that terrifying monster, Rao is now she feels a chill. How could she choose to provoke that monster in the first place? But fortunately, I was saved. By the way, who is your own person? Gwen recalled the Man of Steel who held her. Could it be Iron Man? Wrong. Gwen immediately shook her head. She naturally knew about Iron Man and Iron Superman. So if you think about it, that person should not be Iron Man, but Iron Superman. Who the hell is Steel Superman? This issue has also attracted a lot of attention on the internet, and Gwen, as a fan of Steel Superman, is naturally very concerned. Snap. Huh? Patient, are you awake? The female nurse who came in for rounds was a little surprised to see what was done on the hospital bed, and then she hurriedly walked over. Patient, don't move now, your injury is very serious, you need to rest well. Faced with a strong young female nurse, Gwen had no choice but to lie down again. By the way, Miss Nurse, do you know who the person who sent me to the hospital is? This? I heard that it is our chairman. Chairman? Who is your chairman? Gwen was still a little confused. Of course, the most talented Chairman Roth. The young female nurse replied with a look of adoration. Chairman Roth? Gwen was stunned and reacted. The name Lot was also very famous in their school, and the legendary deeds of this man could be heard in almost most places. After all, the smartphones, DX, and TikTok chat apps that their students use every day were all developed by that man. This adds a lot of fun to their university life. In fact, even Gwen admired the man very much, but he did not expect that he was actually sent to the hospital by that man. That is, Iron Superman is actually Lot. She should have thought that since that playboy Tony Stark could create a steel suit, why couldn't Lot, who was smarter than him? For a moment, Gwen was more excited than ever, as if he was happy to find out Lot's identity. But after thinking about it, the other party seems to have discovered his identity. Thinking of this, Gwen looked at the white spider suit on the side. Guest, you have a good rest, the doctor said you need to be hospitalized for a week. The female nurse saw that she had been in a daze, so she had to turn around and prepare to leave. Wait. Is there anything else going on with the patient? The female nurse turned around suspiciously. Help me inform my dad. Gwen didn't need to think about it and knew how anxious his father would be when he disappeared, so he still had to inform his father first. Sure enough, when George Stacy on the other side of the phone heard his daughter's voice, tears of excitement welled up in his eyes. After receiving the police yesterday, George Stacy went to the police as quickly as possible. But when they arrived at the school, they found that the fighting had long been over. Some say that monsters appeared, and others died. George Stacy immediately felt like finding his daughter first. However, when he heard that his daughter was in the woods at the time, he was like a thunderbolt, and even worse, he did not find his daughter in the school afterwards. This was tantamount to giving him a major blow. George Stacy, who had not slept all night, cried with joy when she received a call from her daughter, and then rushed to the hospital. Finally, in the hospital room, George Stacy met his daughter. It was only at this moment that the boulder in his heart was able to be put down. Seeing that his father's eyes were red, Gwen knew that he must have been worried all night, and after apologizing, he briefly explained what happened before. But she didn't say anything about Steel Superman. And George Stacy was terrified when she learned that her daughter had encountered a monster, but fortunately, her daughter is now fine. A few days later, Susan's injury, which said it took a week to recover, was actually fine yesterday, but she couldn't resist her father's persuasion, so she stayed one more day. On the first day of discharge, Susan did not go to school, but came to the OT Technology headquarters building. Who are you looking for this young lady? The security guards in the hall saw her looking around, so they came up to inquire. I'm sorry, in fact, I want to thank Chairman Roth. Do you have an appointment? The security guard asked politely. Sorry, no. Susan shook her head. In this way. The security guard frowned. I can only help you report to Miss Alice, and I don't know if the chairman will see you. Miss Alice? Gwen was a little curious when she heard the name. It's the company's artificial intelligence management. By the way, what is your name, Miss? Gwen Stacy. When the security guard heard this, he entered this name into the company's intelligent management, that is, artificial intelligence Alice, and whether Alice would tell the chairman the news was not known to him. After doing all this, the security guard took Gwen inside the lounge. Episode 25. Meanwhile, Roth in the underground research base has finally repaired the Saiwen Armor and the Spikum sword, and this time he has created an extra Spirium sword. This makes dealing with monsters easier. Sir, there's a girl out there named Gwen Stacy looking for you. Gwen. Hearing Alice's words, Roth was stunned. Then he remembered that it was almost the same time since Gwen was discharged from the hospital. In the past few days, he has been busy with research, but he has not visited the hospital once. Let her come to the Underground Research Institute. Yes, sir. From the time he sent Gwen to the hospital, he had no intention of hiding his identity, so Gwen must have guessed his identity. Lot's purpose could not be clearer. It is better to cheapen himself than to cheapen S.H.I.E.L.D., so he wants to pull the ghost spider into his camp. Meanwhile, Gwen, who was waiting in the lounge, was scrolling through videos of monsters and Steel Superman, and occasionally let out Silver Bell-like laughter. At this time, a front desk dressed in professional clothes came over, and said in a very respectful tone, "Miss Gwen, the chairman has agreed with you, please follow me." "Oh, okay." Coming to his senses, Gwen put away his phone and followed. The two came to a special elevator. "Miss Gwen, please enter the elevator, and you will meet the chairman later." "Thank you." Gwen walked into the elevator without any doubt, and just as she was about to ask what floor it was, the elevator automatically closed, and then the elevator started and quickly went down. Gwen was a little stunned, but she didn't panic. Sure enough, the elevator stopped after a few minutes. Gwen walked out of the elevator curiously. "Miss Gwen, please come with me." Suddenly, a virtual projection appeared at the elevator door. Gwen was taken aback. "Who are you?" "I'm the artificial intelligence of Ultra Technology, you can call me Alice, now please ask Miss Gwen to come with me, the chairman is already waiting inside." After saying that, Alice actually walked on the ground like a normal person, but if you look closely, it is still just the effect of a virtual shadow. Seeing this, Gwen didn't ask more, and followed curiously. She didn't expect that technology actually had artificial intelligence. It's unimaginable. After all, artificial intelligence is a future technology that can change the world, but there is no news on the market. Soon Gwen followed Alice to a research room full of futuristic technology, and in the center of the hall of the research room, Ultra Armor was placed. Her gaze was instantly attracted by the armor full of technology. Sure enough, it's him. By now, Gwen was pretty sure that the person who saved her before was Lot. "Welcome to my lab, Miss Gwen." The sudden voice caught Gwen's attention, and she turned her head to see a tall handsome man in a white coat looking at him with a smile. "Sorry for the interruption." Although he had been looking forward to seeing Roth before, the moment he really saw the other party, Gwen became a little nervous, and even his white little face flushed. Roth is 1 meter 82 meters tall, which is relatively tall in the ugly country. Because of regular exercise, the body is also relatively tall and strong, plus as the leader of the world's top 500 enterprises. Its temperament is naturally not comparable to ordinary people. Most girls will be attracted by his handsome appearance and temperament when they see him. He was not surprised by this. "Don't be nervous, do you want something to drink?" Roth took off his white gloves and went to the bar on the side. Usually, he also likes to drink some red wine when he is tired, which makes him feel very relaxed. "Huh? Oh, a glass of red wine thanks." Gwen, who reacted, came to the bar a little embarrassed and sat down. "Here you go." Roth got her a glass of red wine. "Thank you." Gwen took the wine and thanked him. Lot couldn't help but be a little amused when he saw that she was still a little nervous, and after taking a closer look at her, he found that it was a little different from any version of Gwen. The female Spider Gwen in front of her has short and medium hair with golden ears, delicate and smooth skin, completely without the rough feeling of Westerners, which is completely in line with the aesthetics of Orientals. The delicate pretty face is dotted with a faint blush, and it looks very beautiful. Because I was wearing wide clothes, I couldn't see my figure clearly. But before Roth had seen her wearing a tight spider suit, the figure was definitely not said, the bump was big. Gwen saw that he was not speaking, so she looked up curiously, but saw that Lot was looking at her with interest, and now her face turned even redder. "That. Thank you." After thinking about it, Gwen still thanked him. After all, the other party saved himself no matter what. Otherwise, I am afraid that he would have been killed by that monster long ago, and even his body would have been eaten. The thought of that result made her heart shudder. Roth smiled and shook his head. "It's just a show of hands, it's not that you contained that monster, and I didn't kill that guy so easily, yes." Gwen was a little pleased, she felt that she was not so useless, at least it was a pull. Of course, this was all Roth lying to her. "By the way, you should be the Steel Superman who has hit a lot of monsters recently," Gwen said a little excitedly after looking at the Ultra Armor on the side. Episode 26, Steel Superman? Hearing the speechless title, Roth couldn't help but shrug. "This name is not good at all." "Yes, I think so too, so what is it called?" Gwen asked curiously. "Severn, I named it Saiwen Armor, which is one of the Ultra Armors. Thai pants are spicy." Gwen's eyes lit up, and she was a little inexplicably excited to think that she might be the first person to know the name. "Yours is not bad, but that spider silk launcher is a bit rudimentary, you come with me," Roth said and turned to the workbench on the other side. Gwen puffed out her cheeks, and her elaborate spider silk launcher was actually said to be rudimentary? If it were someone else, she might have to go up and teach the other a lesson now. But it's different for Roth, who said this. Here you go. Roth picked up a pair of delicate and small watches from the workbench and handed them to her. Watch. Gwen took her watch and looked at it, but she didn't see anything. It's like two ordinary watches, and even the time is displayed on it. Of course, she still likes this color and look very much. Seeing her flipping over and watching carefully, Roth shook his head a little funny. This is a spider silk launcher made in my free time, which has functions such as spraying spider silk, displaying time, calling, and thermal scanning, although I want to add some weapons, but then the volume is too large. Oh my god. Gwen closed her mouth in surprise. If she had said that her homemade spider silk launcher was very rudimentary, she would never admit it. But now compared to this delicate and small watch-shaped spider silk launcher, her homemade spider silk launcher is said to be simple and lifts her. The two are completely incomparable. Not to mention the function, it is difficult for her to be able to reduce the size to the extent of a watch. And if it is so small, she can wear the spider silk launcher on her body at any time. This. Gwen was a little flattered. The first time they met, the other party actually gave her such a precious gift, she was really a little embarrassed. Take it, it's just a casual handmade anyway. Roth waved his hand unconcernedly, and then returned to the bar to drink red wine. Gwen looked at the delicate and small spider silk launch watch in her hand and was a little reluctant to put it down, and after thinking about it, she still accepted it. Thank you. Roth chuckled and shook his head, then offered her another glass of red wine. Gwen, your ability must have been acquired recently. It is said that female Spider-Man often appears on the streets of New York, specializing in fighting criminals. Hee, because my father is a New York police officer, so. Gwen playfully stuck out her tongue. Because she is in a police family, she has also been influenced by her father George since she was a child. Therefore, after she has the ability, she will go to those remote alleys at night to fight criminals. She enjoyed the process immensely. However, the only thing that makes her a little depressed is that her police father seems to have made her the #1 target for pursuit. Do you like being a superhero? Lot asked with interest. Of course, that feeling of fighting criminals is great, don't you do the same? Gwen asked rhetorically, slightly excited. In her opinion, Roth is not a superhero. After all, he hit those monsters before. Roth shook his head. I don't want to be superheroes or anything, and I don't think I can save the world. He just completes missions to earn points, not a superhero. But now everyone thinks of you as a superhero. Gwen didn't understand something. He obviously did something that belonged to a superhero. Why didn't he admit that he was a superhero? Gwen, you have to know that being a superhero is very difficult, so I won't be a superhero, I will only do what I can. Lot looked at her seriously. Being a superhero has too many things to carry, and it's not something that ordinary people want to take for granted. So he definitely won't be a superhero. Is that so? Gwen thought thoughtfully, as if pondering the meaning of his words. So do you want to join my Superman team? Huh? Team Superman? Gwen was stunned. You have also seen that recently, the entire ugly country has become more and more unpeaceful. Various monsters have appeared frequently. Who knows if there will be aliens attacking the Earth in the future? Roth is right that in a while, there will indeed be aliens attacking Earth. So I'm going to form a superhuman organization to help each other, so that it can be more convenient to deal with unknown monsters. What do you think? I join. After listening to his words, Gwen's eyes suddenly lit up, and he immediately agreed without hesitation. She has just gained superpowers when she feels lonely and confused, and although she chooses to become a superhero, she also feels lonely. If she could join an organization that also has the ability to help each other, of course, she would be willing. Episode 27. Yes, welcome to join. Roth didn't expect her to agree so quickly. So is our organization called Superman? By the way, how many people are in the organization? Gwen asked quickly. The name of the organization is Ultra Combat Team. As for the members plus you, there are currently 4 of them. Are there 4? Gwen asked with some surprise. So who are the other 2? You'll know this later. Roth didn't tell her that the other 2 hadn't joined Team Ultra yet. Banner was still working on himself, and Susan hadn't turned into a female Hulk yet. So at present, there are only 2 of them in the Ultra team. Okay, so what do our Ultra teams need to do next? With the new Spider Silk launcher, Gwen is already a little impatient to show off her strength. You can continue to be your Spider-Man. I will notify you if there are monsters infested. Of course, it is still a little difficult to deal with monsters with your current strength. Lot was considering whether to give Gwen an Ultra armor as well, but after thinking about it, maybe adding some weapons to her spider suit could help. For example, the Spirahem sword or something. Okay then. Gwen shrugged. She wasn't going to give up her dream of becoming a superhero. You go to the training room over there first to test the new Spider Silk launcher. I have something to do. Oh, okay. Gwen quickly walked to the training room, just as she also wanted to try out using the new Spider Silk launcher. Of course, Roth didn't really want to work, but planned to summon the mutant lobster Ebira right now. As a huge monster, it will not deliberately hide its shape, so their ultra combat team should be able to dispatch soon. Sure enough. After half an hour. Lot, the new spider silk launcher is really powerful, thank you. After Gwen came out of the training room after playing for half an hour, he still couldn't hide his excitement. However, she still feels that using spider silk launchers indoors is somewhat limited, and it would be better if she could swing between tall buildings. You came out at the right time, there is already news of the monster. What? A new monster has appeared? Gwen was startled in her heart, and then walked over quickly. Alice, where is that monster now? Lot's words fell, and there was an additional virtual map in front of him. According to news 2 minutes ago, the monster's current location is within Boston Bay. With Alice's words, the map gradually zoomed in on the Boston area, and a bay with many cruise ships appeared in front of the two. It is said that this monster was originally lurking in the harbor of the bay, but a cruise ship accidentally bumped into the monster at the bottom of the sea while passing by, causing it to roll over, and then the monster was exposed from the bottom of the sea, and now it has attracted the attention of the police and the media. Looking at the huge lobster monster on the virtual screen, Gwen's whole person was stunned. This guy wouldn't be a big lobster, would he? It's possible. Roth nodded a little stoically. Not to mention, Ibra was originally a monster mutated from lobsters. If you zoom in, it's really not much different from ordinary Boston lobsters, but it's just bigger and more hideous. So we're dealing with a big lobster? Gwen's face was a little strange. Don't underestimate this big lobster, you didn't even hurt the heavy fire of the police. Roth pointed to the video channel. This video was clearly recorded by the people present, and it was recorded very clearly. I saw that the police took out a single bazooka and bombed Ebira repeatedly, but it did not cause much damage to Ebira. This even angered Ebira, which caused several ships to suffer. Alright. Gwen had no choice but to accept the fact that the target was a large lobster. Let's go, if you go late, many people will suffer. Lot said as he walked towards the Saiwen Armor, and with a sound of metal twisting, he was quickly dressed. Cool. Gwenbai, who watched him in armor the whole time, gave a thumbs up, and his eyes were full of unabashed admiration. This is your spider suit. Roth didn't know where to take out a spider suit of the same style as her homemade. Thank you. This spider suit was obviously prepared for her by Lot, because he knew that she would definitely join her. But she didn't care. The dressing room is over there. Roth pointed to the room on the other side. Gwen raised an eyebrow, then took the clothes and went to the room. After a while, Gwen, wearing a spider suit that outlined his figure, walked out of the room. It fits perfectly. Gwen said thoughtfully. Just fit. Lot pretended not to hear the meaning of her words. After all, he can't say that he has held her with his own hands, so he knows her figure very well. So how do I get there? Gwen suddenly noticed a problem, that is, she couldn't fly. This one is simple. Roth said and hugged her, and then flew out of the outbuilding. After looking in the right direction, quickly fly towards Boston. Boston is north of New York, the distance is about 300 kilometers, and it takes about 4 hours by bus. 10 minutes would have been enough if Roth had acted alone, but this time he was carrying Gwen. Episode 28, half an hour later, inside Boston Bay. I saw a huge lobster monster that had landed on the shore and rushed towards the police troops who kept firing nearby. Several gunships in the sky kept circling, and heavy fire machine guns were also firing nonstop. However, under the suppression of this heavy firepower, the lobster monster Ebira did not suffer any injuries, and its hard shell was enough to withstand any bullet attack. Thundered. At this time, several rockets bombarded the lobster monster continuously. The lobster monster roared, apparently having received some injuries. Unlike King Black, the lobster monster has a hard shell, but many weaknesses, such as eyes and belly. This kind of place, if attacked, is enough to hurt it. After all, it is a weakened lobster monster, and human weapons are still effective against it. Meanwhile, not far away, on the roof of a tall building. What to do? Do we still want to shoot? Seeing that the lobster monster couldn't move under the suppression of the rocket, Gwen thought that it would be okay without them to shoot. Anyway, just kill that monster. However, Lot frowned, he didn't know if the monsters killed by others could get mission points, but the previous missions seemed to have been interfered with. If other people can also get points by killing monsters, it will be very beneficial to him. At this moment, a fire appeared in the sky. It's Iron Man coming. Gwen's eyes were very good, and she could see the person from a long distance. Seeing that Tony came, Roth was not in a hurry to start, so he used this time to test whether others could get mission points by killing monsters. When the people below saw Iron Man coming, they immediately burst into enthusiastic cheers. Although Iron Man has repeatedly lost when facing monsters before, he still can't stand people's worship of him. The first time Tony came to the scene was to look around, and after seeing that Rolf did not appear, he was suddenly a little excited. I let that guy steal the limelight every time, and this time I have to solve this monster first. After speaking, I saw Tony stretch out his hands, and in an instant, 2 palm cannons blasted towards the lobster monster below. Bang! Roar. The powerful impact made the lobster monster roar, but it did not pose any threat to it. Is the hardest place the shell? Then attack your weaknesses. Tony quickly understood the monster's weakness. After all, this guy was too similar to Boston Lobster. If you want to talk about the weakness of lobsters, then it must be the belly. When the military saw Iron Man's move, they decisively stopped the fire suppression. Then I saw Tony dive down, and then quickly flew past the lobster monster's feet, while several timed high-explosive bombs were attached to the lobster monster's abdomen. Thundered. The bomb explodes the moment Tony flies away. Roar. The lobster monster roared in pain, and saw that a large hole had been exploded in its abdomen, and all the yellow liquid was sprayed out. Well done. Seeing this, the head of the military could not help but applaud him. This blow directly hit the key point of the lobster monster, even if it is undead and crippled. Sure enough. The lobster monster finally fell down after wailing a few times, and then the entire body disappeared with the blood in the ground. Although this scene is very shocking, people are not surprised. After all, this was the case with several previous monster attacks. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing the lobster monster Abira and earning 3,000 points. Hearing the prompt in his mind, Lot's face bloomed with a smile, but he didn't expect that others who killed monsters could actually get all the mission rewards. This is really too beneficial for him. Isn't Tony a fan of the limelight, so give him the job of killing monsters? Wouldn't it be nice to sit back and enjoy your success? Let's go, we really don't need to make a move. Rolf turned and wanted to leave. Hey, don't be in such a hurry to go back, why don't we eat Boston Lobster? Gwen hugged his arm and coquettishly said. Good too. Rolf had no choice but to agree, but he hadn't tasted Boston Lobster for a long time. Glancing back at Tony, who was full of smelly farts below, the guy looked like he was enjoying the sensation of being in the limelight. This time, he alone solved the monster that made the military helpless, enough for him to be proud for a long time. In the evening, Rolf delivered Gwen to his doorstep. Okay, you go in, I should go back too. Originally, he just planned to accompany Gwen to eat a Boston Lobster, but he didn't expect that this girl's requirements became more and more excessive, not only asking to go shopping, but also asking to visit the amusement park. That's why the two came back so late. Thank you, I'm having a great day. Gwen ruffled the broken hair at the corner of her eye and smiled. Well, then I'll leave. Lot waved his hand and turned to leave. Unexpectedly, Gwen suddenly hugged him and then gave him a quick kiss on the face. See you tomorrow. After saying that, Gwen quickly let go of him and then trotted away. Lot looked back at her a little stunned. This chick won't like me so quickly, will he? Shaking his head, he didn't think much about it. After all, he now had Susan's girlfriend. The other side. Gwen, who returned home, naturally had to face the questioning of the chief's father. After all, today her daughter suddenly said that she was going out to play, and she only came back now, and she was sent back by a boy in a luxury car, which is not right. So who is that person? It's a boyfriend. In the face of her father's questioning, Gwen replied playfully with these hands on her back, and then fled back to her room. Episode 29. George, who got this answer, looked a little ugly, but he didn't expect Gwen to have a boyfriend. However, their daughters are 17 years old, and it is normal to have a boyfriend. Thinking of this, George couldn't help sighing. Of course, although he does not object to his daughter having a boyfriend, he has to check the details of the other party. George had a headache when he thought that New York was becoming more and more unpeaceful recently, that various monsters appeared frequently, and that there was a guy who called himself Ghost Spider-Man who committed crimes everywhere. It seems that the investigation of the future son-in-law will have to be postponed, and he will have to catch this Ghost Spider-Man now. Following. Lot early. Early in the morning, Gwen arrived unimpeded inside the Underground Research Institute. Early, but I need work now, so. Don't worry, I won't bother you. Gwen waved his hand, indicating that she wouldn't disturb his work. Seeing this, Rolf ignored her and focused instead on the technological system. Now he has 10,000 points, so many points can be exchanged for a lot of things. For example, the Ultra Factor requires exactly 10,000 points. After using Ultra Factor, you will gain some Ultraman abilities, such as greatly improving flying and physical fitness, and even releasing Spichum rays. If it is combined with the original Ultra Armor, it will definitely make Lot's current strength grow by leaps and bounds, and it may be able to challenge the gigantic monster at that time. At the same time, you can also redeem Ultra Armor version 7.0, whether it is Severn Armor, the original Armor, or Ace Armor. In addition, the primary quantum teleportation technology that I have always wanted so much before can also be exchanged. Faced with so many choices, Roth was hesitant for a while. After thinking about it, he still decided to exchange the Ultra Factor. After all, it is not so simple for the primary quantum teleportation technology to be realized. Even with full technical support, it can take months to build. And if you exchange the Ultra Factor, you can immediately improve his strength. So in comparison, it is better to exchange the Ultra Factor. Thinking of this, he did not have any hesitation and directly exchanged the Ultra Factor. In an instant, he had an extra blue needle in his hand. Is this the Ultra Factor? Roth looked at the blue needle in his hand in amazement, and there was blue liquid flowing through the needle. You can get Ultra Factor by injecting it into your body, but it will take some time to completely fuse Ultra Factor. Without much thought, he decisively injected the Ultra Factor into his own body. After the injection is completed, there is no feeling. However, he knew that the Ultra Factor already existed in his body and would slowly merge with his body. This may be a few days, or it may be a month. And now all Lot has to do is to get more points as soon as possible and build the original Ultra Armor, and his strength will be greatly improved. At the same time, it must also be ready for primary quantum teleportation technology. He is ready to launch at least 100 artificial satellites to form a chain of satellites. At that time, no matter where you are, you can use these satellites for quantum teleportation. Thinking of this, Roth immediately prepared to summon a monster again in the system. Sir, I think you must be very interested in this matter in New Mexico. At this moment, Alice's virtual projection suddenly appeared in front of him. Huh? What is the matter? Lot was a little puzzled. Generally Alice would not bother him while he was working, unless there was news of a monster. Please look. Alice waved her hand, and a virtual screen appeared. In the screen is a desert next door, and in this desert, a hammer falls into a large circular pit. Lot's eyes suddenly lit up when he saw this. Isn't this Mjolnir? Suddenly he remembered that when the original Iron Man was solving Ivan Vanko, S.H.I.E.L.D. had already discovered Mjolnir. I just don't know if Thor has a nether after so many days. And did Loki let the destroyer come? Speaking of the destroyer, Roth couldn't help but move in his heart. Maybe he could trigger the system task. Lot, what is this? At some point, Gwen came over and looked curiously at the virtual screen in front of him. Do you like New Mexico? Lot asked as he folded his hands to his chest and turned his head. Huh? Why do you ask that? Gwen was stunned. Maybe we're going to travel for a few days. Could it be that there is a monster over there? Gwen guessed boldly. She knew that Roth wouldn't go over there for no reason. Roth nodded, almost. Then let's go. As soon as Gwen heard that a monster had appeared, he immediately became a little impatient. Are you okay with your studies? Roth suddenly remembered that Gwen was still a student. Was it really good to suddenly follow him and leave? It's okay, because of the previous injury, it's still within the leave time. Gwen waved her hand unconcernedly. George had taken half a month's vacation for her, and now it was only half over. Okay then. But you have to get your father's permission. Roth didn't want to be approached by the police chief. And Gwen, who heard this, looked sad. What reason should she convince her somewhat old-fashioned father? Episode 30, 2 hours later. The two finally got on a private jet to New Mexico. How? How did you explain that to your dad? On the plane, Roth asked with some curiosity. You know, my dad was very strict with me, so all I can say was dating a boyfriend. Gwen replied seemingly casually, but her turquoise eyes stared at him casually. That's good. The atmosphere was a little awkward, and Roth didn't know how to answer this. After all, the meaning of this is too obvious. Seeing that he did not answer positively, Gwen was suddenly a little disappointed. All the way without words. When the two arrived in New Mexico, it was more than 3 hours later. Oh my God, what's over there? After several kilometers, the two people on the plane could see a dark cloud of black pressure in the distance, like a funnel-like connection to the ground. Thunder and lightning in the dark clouds are like the end of the world. It seems that we have come at the right time. Lot's eyes froze slightly, and there was only one explanation for this situation, that is, the destroyer had arrived. Ding. Mission hint, defeat the destroyer to earn 8,000 points. Getting the system prompt, he secretly said in his heart that only by approaching here could the system task be triggered. But 8,000 points, which is too little, right? No matter how to say that the destroyer is also an existence that accompanies Odin to fight against the celestial god group in his conquest of the 9 realms. Could it be that because Loki is manipulating, the destroyer's strength is weaker? After thinking about it, he could only come to this conclusion. What's going on over there? Gwen was a little puzzled. Until now, she only knew that an alien hammer had arrived. Let's go over and take a look first. Roth said as he got up and put on the Saiwen Armor. Seeing this, Gwen also took off his jacket directly, revealing the white spider suit and beautiful body inside. Without saying a word, Lot put his arm around her waist. Ready? Of course. Gwen wrapped her arms around his neck. The next moment, the two jumped off the plane, and then turned into a stream of light and flew towards the dark clouds in the distance. A moment later, when the two arrived at the town below the dark clouds, the townspeople here had already begun to evacuate in panic. And in the west of the town, there were bursts of explosions. What the hell is that guy? When Gwen saw the silver armor that was being destroyed indiscriminately, he couldn't help but exclaim. After all, she originally thought it was some kind of monster, but she didn't expect it to be a product of technology. That is the armor of the destroyer, the legendary god King Odin. Looking at the destroyer who kept destroying, Rao and Roth couldn't help but look solemn. Because he found that the destroyer in front of him was much more powerful than what was shown in the movie, and the flame-like shockwave was very powerful, even if it was much stronger than other plasma cannons. This will destroy most of the entire town. We've got to stop it. Seeing the destruction of the town, Gwen couldn't help but frown. You go to a safe place first, I'll try to see if I can tear this guy down. Roth placed Gwen a little further away. Although Gwen was a little unwilling, she also knew that her ability was completely unfavorable to a monster like the other party. At this time, the three warriors of the immortal palace below, Thor and the others, also noticed their presence. Who is that guy? Thor saw him snort armor and almost mistook it for Loki as well. That's the hero of our planet. Coulson volunteered. Although the Iron Superman did not be as flamboyant as Iron Man and did not advertise himself as a superhero, the other party defeated the monsters that appeared in New York several times. So it also deserves Coulson's hero. Yes? Thor was a little surprised, as if he didn't expect that the Midgards actually had such powerful technology. Can that guy deal with the destroyer? Sif on the side was a little suspicious. Let him stand down, he will die. The older Vostag looked at Coulson with a serious look and persuaded. I'm sorry, but I don't have the power to order him. Coulson shrugged helplessly. Just as several people were talking, Roth had already come to the sky above the destroyer. He didn't have any nonsense, and the plasma cannon that had been accumulated in his hand for a long time shot over instantly. Thundered. Oh, the Midgards actually have such a weapon. Thor and the three warriors of the Immortal Palace were all taken aback by this power, and this destructive power was not at all inferior to the shockwave of the destroyer. Can you finish off that guy? Jane Foster, who was hiding in the distance, asked loudly. I'm afraid not. Thor shook his head. He had fought with his father in the Nine Realms, so he knew very well how terrifying the defense power of that armor really was. Although manipulating the destroyer was unpleasant to his father, his power dropped significantly. But such an attack is unlikely to harm the destroyer. Sure enough. When the smoke cleared, I saw the destroyer jump out of the bombed pit intact. Immediately after the destroyer locked onto Roth in the sky, a hot shock wave shot out towards him. Roth had already prepared and dodged the shockwave's attack with one sideways. However, before he could fight back again, he saw the destroyer continuously emitting shockwaves, one after another. It can't go on like this, we have to do something. The three warriors of the Immortal Palace frowned when they saw this. The sense of honor as a god race made them unable to sit idly by. After all, this was their Asgard's business. And how can the Midgardians be implicated?